During the Second World War, survival wasn't guaranteed, not by strength, rank or courage, but by knowledge. Soldiers who made it through freezing nights, relentless bombardments and weeks without supplies weren't just lucky. They were resourceful. They knew how to take the earth itself and turn it into protection. Every foxhole, dugout and field shelter was born from necessity and refined by experience. These weren't luxury bunkers built with blueprints and engineers. They were improvised sanctuaries built under fire, often in enemy territory, with the simplest of tools. And what's astonishing is that these same techniques, tested in the mud and blood of World War II, still outperform many modern survival methods today. Let's uncover 5 of the most reliable World War II shelter secrets soldiers lived and sometimes died by, and how their hard-earned lessons still apply to anyone serious about survival today. The earth itself became the best armor and insulation. When steel was scarce and concrete unavailable, soldiers turned to the one material that existed everywhere: dirt. By digging into the earth, they discovered one of nature's best defensive and thermal barriers. A simple trench or dugout provided immediate cover from shrapnel and small arms fire, but beyond protection, it also offered stable temperatures, cool in summer and tolerably warm in winter. Unlike exposed tents or wooden structures, a dugout didn't lose heat rapidly because the Earth's own mass acted as insulation. If you want to use this principle today, start with the same foundation soldiers relied on. Dig down about 3 to 4 feet, using the excavated soil to build up walls on the windward side. Reinforce the roof with logs or thick branches, then pile soil back on top. Even without modern materials, this simple setup can keep temperatures relatively steady inside, often between 55 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit. World War II veterans often recalled sleeping soundly while frost coated the ground above. It wasn't comfort, it was survival through physics. Ventilation was, honestly, the hidden key to surviving underground. Early in the war, many soldiers learned the hard way that a well-sealed shelter could quickly become a death trap. Without oxygen flow, carbon dioxide buildup could suffocate men in their sleep, especially when using stoves or candles inside. German and Soviet troops both mastered the art of ventilation in field bunkers, using improvised systems of hollow reeds, tin cans, and even spent artillery casings to draw in fresh air. In modern terms, this trick remains vital for off-grid living or emergency shelters. A simple setup works. Create 2 openings, one low near the floor for intake and another high on the opposite wall for exhaust. Warm air naturally rises and escapes, pulling fresh air inward through the lower vent. Soldiers sometimes used rags soaked in oil to reduce drafts and keep rain from seeping in. You know, you can actually replicate the same principle with PVC pipe or bamboo tubing. The science hasn't changed, only the materials have. Camouflage was the first and most important line of defense. One of the most overlooked truths of World War II fieldcraft was that the best shelter was the one no one ever found. Allied and Axis soldiers became masters of camouflage, not the kind worn on uniforms, but the kind built into the terrain itself. Trenches were dug to follow the natural contours of the land. Roofs were covered with sod, brush and broken branches to mimic the surrounding vegetation. In some cases, soldiers even transplanted small shrubs onto their bunker roofs to complete the illusion. The lesson endures today, especially for anyone interested in stealth camping, wilderness survival, or property concealment. Visibility is vulnerability. A shelter that blends seamlessly into its surroundings offers protection without confrontation. To apply this, use local materials, leaves, grasses, or even mud that matches the native soil colour. Break up straight lines and shiny surfaces. WWII engineers taught that the human eye is drawn to patterns and contrast. Remove those and your structure becomes nearly invisible. Even modern military camouflage nets are still based on these same principles refined in the 1940s. Improvised heat sources were more reliable than open fires. In bitter cold, a fire can mean life or death, but during the war, fires could also mean discovery. The glow of a single flame could draw sniper fire or give away a position. So soldiers developed heat sources that produced warmth without light or smoke. One clever trick used by both British and Soviet troops was the candle stove made by soaking cotton rags in grease or wax and placing them inside a tin can with holes punched in the sides. These slow-burning devices gave off steady heat for hours and could even warm small shelters. A similar method still works today for those needing a low-profile heat source. Use a small metal container, fill it with strips of cardboard or fabric, and pour in melted wax, animal fat, or cooking oil. Light a single corner and you'll have a quiet, efficient heater that won't betray your location. During the Second World War, soldiers learned to use resourcefulness as their greatest tool. They would, often recycle fuel from vehicles or salvage candle remnants from rations. It's a real testament that survival innovation doesn't necessarily require new technology, just necessity and a bit of creativity. Drainage and elevation. Well, they could determine whether a shelter saved you or drowned you. One of the very first lessons taught to recruits building field shelters was simple. Never dig where water settles. In both the European and Pacific theatres, countless shelters ended up flooded overnight because soldiers underestimated how rain and runoff behaved. The veterans learned pretty quickly to elevate floors using scrapboards or brush and to carve small drainage channels leading away from the entrance. A well-drained trench could stay functional through weeks of rain, while a poorly placed one, honestly, just became a swamp. For modern survivalists, that wisdom remains unchanged. Before you even think about building, you should observe the terrain after rainfall. Low spots and gullies are deceptive. They promise easy digging, but honestly, they guarantee misery later. The old soldier's rule still applies. Build high, dig deep. If possible, slope the floor gently toward an exit trench to channel water away. Even a single inch of standing water can drop body temperature dangerously fast, and World War II shelters that overlooked this detail became death traps in freezing weather. These 5 secrets share a common thread: simplicity born from necessity. You know, Wu soldiers didn't have blueprints, power tools, or building codes. They had urgency, resourcefulness, and a deep respect for the laws of nature. They learned through trial and error how to work with their environment instead of against it, and that's precisely why their methods endure. Whether you're studying history, preparing for emergencies, or just, appreciating the craftsmanship of survival under pressure, these wartime shelter hacks prove one timeless truth. The best designs are those that nature itself approves of. What's really remarkable is how applicable these lessons still are. A dugout can serve as a cold-weather retreat. A well-camouflaged shelter can protect supplies or livestock. And honestly, an improvised heater can mean the difference between comfort and frostbite when the power grid fails. The ingenuity of those who fought and endured the Second World War left behind more than just artifacts. It left a blueprint for survival that continues to save lives long after the last shots were fired. If you found this deep dive into wartime ingenuity fascinating, make sure to subscribe to Echoes of Valor for more forgotten survival wisdom from the world's most testing times. Share this with a fellow history enthusiast or survivalist, and let's keep these hard-earned lessons alive. Because in every trench, bunker and foxhole, there's a story worth remembering, and knowledge that might one day save you too.